Angelina Jolie, Narcissist, Part 7. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. We've examined a lot about Angelina Jolie's early life, her acting, and her intimate relationships. We now turn to an examination of her relationship, primarily with her father John Voight, but with a bit of information about her relationship with her mother also. I have explained to you that when it comes to the formation of a narcissist, there are two components. There's a genetic predisposition that must exist and a lack of control environment. There would certainly seem to be a case made out for a lack of control environment for Angelina Jolie. But what about a genetic component? Could that have come from mother or father? Well, you can make your own minds up as I detailed the behaviour. The problems began when John Voight, despite being married to Jolie's mother, Marceline Bertrand, had an affair. Conducting an affair suggests an absence of emotional empathy, suggests a sense of entitlement, suggests a lack of accountability. Doesn't mean that he's a narcissist, but it is a strong indicator. Jolie was just a baby, and her brother wasn't much older when Voight divorced Bertrand. Bertrand was just 20 years old when she had to take care of two children and give up on her career as an actor, as her estranged husband allegedly abandoned the family. Not only his abandonment created a lack of control environment, the fact that he abandoned his family suggests an absence of emotional empathy for his children. It also demonstrates parental abrogation of responsibilities and duties, which is lack of accountability. Apparently, Jolie saw the distress and anguish that her mother had to go through, and that impacted on her own attitudes towards her father. Friend Susan Margaret said, John Voight was a terrible father to her back then. He cheated on her mother. Marceline was broken-hearted. She told me John had emotionally abused her. She said he had a thing for a Hollywood starlet. Angelina had a difficult time growing up with what was going on. She had a lot of hostility towards her dad. If it's correct that he emotionally abused his wife, that would also suggest a lack of emotional empathy on his part, and the suggestion is that he did so repeatedly, showing perhaps a systematic type of behaviour. Bertrand had to raise Jolie and her brother James Haven on her own, with financial support from Voight. They remained very close until Bertrand's death from cancer in 2007, and at only 56 years old, and when Jolie became a mum herself, she talked about how Bertrand influenced her own approach to parenting. My mum always made it clear that I was her friend. Now, it's interesting there to state she saw us as a friend. That also could not have helped Angelina Jolie with regard to her own formation, because she wasn't allowed to be a child. She had an absent father and a mother that treated her more as a friend than a daughter. Furthermore, Jolie says, and that is a lesson on how to bring up my own children. That demonstrates that her own approach to her children has become tainted by the way that her mother treated her. When we talked, I felt she wanted to hear what I had to say. She enjoyed me, and I feel I'm enjoying my kids. If anybody ever tells me that I am a mother to them like my mum was to me, it will be a great compliment. As a little girl, Jolie barely ever saw her father. Lack of control environment, lack of parental abrogation of responsibilities and duties. He was too busy with his career, self-absorbed, to make time for his family. And when he did see them, it wasn't much better. Jolie has talked about how every time she saw her father when she was young, there just happened to be a bunch of press around. She explained that she cut him out of her life as an adult because of the amount of tears shed growing up, and the amount of screaming matches, and the amount of insecurity seen impacting on my mother and my brother because of fights and things said is simply not healthy. This does indeed point to a lack of control environment, one where there was what would appear to be heated instances of fury, argumentativeness, hatred, an unsupporting and unpleasant environment. The 1986 Oscars were yet another one of Voight's photo opportunities. Angelina and her brother James attended the ceremony along with their father, who was nominated for an award. It looks again that he liked treating them as extensions of himself. But after the glitz and glamour were over, Voight left again, treating his children, it would appear, to a shelving dynamic, picking them up when they served a purpose to him and putting them down when they did not. Voight only made time for his family when it could help his career. If there were no cameras around, he would not give his kids the time of day. Shows a lack of emotional empathy and self-absorption. The situation then worsened when the siblings filed a petition to have the surname Voight legally removed, requiring the actress to use her middle name Jolie, which she was using at the time. Most of the time, her father kept his distance as well. According to several reports, Angelina Jolie had a hard time growing up without her father. It was also reported that Voight had refused to later pay child support, and hence the family was in financial stress. Abrogation of responsibilities, once again lack of accountability, absence of emotional empathy. Haven had told the media that his family had mentally abused his mother for a long time. Voight claimed that his efforts to mend the relationship went unanswered. Psychologists have allegedly that Jolie's involvement with drugs, her bouts of depression, suicidal thoughts, self-mutilation, and her becoming sexually active at a young age can all said to be due to the effect of her home environment. Jolie played the role of Voight's daughter in the movie Looking to Get Out. Although the role was a small one, Voight appreciated it. As Jolie grew up, Voight starred in Lara Croft Tomb Raider in 2001, where he played Angelina Jolie's father. It's alleged that the father-daughter duo had a brief reunion after that for about a year, so he once again comes back into her life. In 2001, Jolie adopted her first child, a boy from Cambodia named Maddox. Children gave her a newfound purpose in life. However, her father almost ruined everything. Jolie needed approval before she could adopt Maddox, so she wanted to keep it a secret until it was finalised. However, Voight blew that by mentioning the adoption in an interview. Sense of entitlement, lack of boundary recognition. His mentioning of it almost stopped the adoption, as Cambodian adoption laws are very strict to prevent trafficking. Matters got even worse. On August the 1st, 2002, Voight infamously told Access Hollywood that his daughter had mental problems and needed help. This may well have been him speaking the truth, but to do so about his daughter in such a fashion, speaking to the media without her knowledge or permission, showed a flagrant absence of emotional empathy on his behalf, a sense of entitlement and a lack of accountability. You're probably working out by now what John Voight may well be through the various behaviours that he has exhibited, which might suggest that there was indeed a genetic predisposition towards narcissism that came from Voight, and of course we know full well that there was a lack of control environment as well. Accordingly, that does raise the possibility of Jolie being a narcissist by virtue of the usual formation of the way that a narcissist comes into being. On that same day in August, Voight told E! News Live that when he had seen her earlier at Paramount's 90th anniversary party, he ran to give her a hug, and one of her representatives stepped in the way and said, "Get back." He said, "She's been staying away from me because she knows I've been trying to reach her to get help. She was suffering from serious emotional problems that I have witnessed very closely." Voight went on to state, "I've always been there for my kids, always been there for the family," which of course seems like a revision of history. He said he hadn't yet met his grandson Maddox, whom Jolie adopted from Cambodia in March 2002. Now, it might well be that Jolie quite properly has kept her son away from his grandfather, or it might be the case that this is being done as a devaluing act towards him. Voight explained, "It's a great pain that I haven't been able to see the baby. The reason for my plea is not for myself. I want nothing more than to hold my baby in my arms. I want to tell Angie that I love her, and I want her to get the help she needs, and I want her to find true love." Jolie, who had filed for divorce from Thornton in July 2002, told Access Hollywood in a statement, I don't want to make public the reasons for my bad relationship with my father. I will only say that, like every child, James and I would have loved to have had a warm and loving relationship with our dad. After all these years, I've determined that it is not healthy for me to be around my father, especially now that I am responsible for my own child. That September, she legally dropped Voight from her name, and she and her father did not talk for years. My father and I don't speak, Jolie told Premiere in 2004. I don't hold any anger towards him. I don't believe that somebody's family becomes their blood, because my son's adopted, and families are earned. When I had the final argument with my father, we've had many off and on, I had thought we were breaking ground, and I realised we simply weren't. We were back to where we always were, not a place where I felt healthy or good when I was around him. And it's simply that. There's no anger. I feel for him. I feel if he's got problems, maybe he thinks I do. We all do, maybe. But the amount of tears shed growing up and the amount of screaming matches and the amount of insecurities seen, impacting on my mother and my brother because of fights and things said, is simply not healthy. I have to be strong for my son, Jolie said, and I don't want to have in his environment something that upsets me and makes his mother not as strong. It's simple. No negative feelings. It's just not healthy for me to have that contact with my father. Now, does this show a mother with emotional empathy protecting her child and ensuring that she keeps him away from somebody who has caused problems for her repeatedly in her life? Or is it that she has cognitive empathy and recognizes what's right for her son and utilizes that as a means to nullify the threat to control that her father poses? You can make your minds up what you think it might be as you hear more evidence. It's clear that John Voight is a difficult individual and was a repeatedly absent father who only utilized his children for his own needs. There's more to come in part 8 as we hear more about the relationship between Angelina Jolie and her father.